Well, look, I mean, I think it averages, it gets up to about 6 or 7 amps when we're really flying, sort of 7.5, 8 knots. But a lot of the time, you're probably cruising around 6 knots, and I'd imagine that would be around 3.5 to 4 amps. So on a 24-hour day, that's somewhere between 90 and 100 amps. It's so noticeable when we're not running the Remoran. So we had a problem once where it stopped working. We couldn't work out why it stopped working. And it wasn't until we lifted it, we realized we got a little bit of polyprop around the prop, which would stop the prop moving. And then the consumption that normally sits around 6 or 7 amps an hour was suddenly up to like 10. It's just so noticeable when you're not getting those 100 amps. I was initially concerned that there was a lot of drag from the unit when it was in the water, but the more I've used it, the less significant I think that has become. And I think it's probably the way we were sailing the boat rather than the unit. But now we don't think there's a major problem there at all. Apart from having one bit of polyprop in 31,000 miles around the back end, it was seamless. It was just one of those things that you just plug it in and you forget about it. Nothing at all. Apart from taking that one bit of polyprop out at 31,000 miles, we've done. We run it all day, every day. When we get to an anchorage, we lift it out the water, and it lies on a seat on top of the boat. And we put it back in when we go, and we don't do anything else to it. Me, initially, I like the performance stats look good, but I was also hugely impressed by the aesthetic because it looked really tidy. I don't like the other units that have bits of string and pulleys and bells and whistles and God knows what else hanging off the back, and that looked like way too much clutter for me. So and what was so reassuring was that when I actually got the unit and opened it up for the first time, it was like opening up an Apple device because it was beautifully packaged, and you kind of preconditioned yourself that it was going to be good because the packaging and everything about it was just on the money, and I was really, really impressed by it. So it looked good and it felt good. So yeah, I think the expression would be almost plug and play. I fitted it all myself, ran all the cables, bits and pieces. It was a very, very easy set of instructions to follow. One thing we did fit later was the what was it called? There's a breaker, isn't there? If you're sort of producing too much power.
Right.
Well, we put it on for the first time in Falmouth, and we went down to the Scillies. And it was a strong easterly, and there was a bit of a swell running, and we had full sail up, and we were just sitting in the cockpit chatting quietly, and I looked up at the speed, and extraordinarily we were going down the face of a wave doing 14 knots, and we weren't really supposed to be doing that. So I thought, okay, if that sort of thing's going to happen, we better fit the breaker just in case. No, just plug straight in, and it all just seemed to sort itself out. I can't pretend I'm an expert in all of that, but we have two independent controllers for both the sets of panels, and one controller for the other one. They all go into a bus bar, and then that same bus bar feeds into the so all renewables feed in. And I have a little gadget on here where I can track what my Remoran is doing and what my solar is doing. Sometimes between solar and the Remoran, so like 18 amps, going in, which is great. So we can, to be fair, with solar and Remoran, we can charge the batteries back to 100%, on some days. I guess that that's another thing that makes the hydrogen, like a serious consideration, because it doesn't need daylight to work, and it just runs for 24 hours a day. So arguably it produces as much as a good solar panel because it's just running all the time. Soda stream. Yeah, soda stream. We make all our own water on the boat. And soda streams are really, we like fizzy water, so it's a really great way to rehydrate. Starling is an absolute no-brainer, I'm afraid, because it's just a complete game changer in this industry. So, I mean, there's always the trade-off, isn't there, between, the primary reason for doing it, I quite like the idea of having renewable power, and I quite like the fact of not using the generator. So I think it would be a cost v output thing, on the second unit. But having said that, everything is wired now to put the second unit in, and I've got the option to fit one. And I think that if I did, it would make a significant difference, to the whole package. I think if I think if you're into renewable, then it's a complete no-brainer because, solar's good and wind is reasonable, but I think hydrogen is just all the while you're moving, you're creating some element of power, and you're doing it for 24 hours a day. So if you're into ocean cruising and you're going to be at sea for, we put it on if we go for a half-day sail, because it's just throwing power back in the batteries that you don't have to use the generator or be reliant on anything else to do. So. But if you are at sea for any number of days, then it's a complete no-brainer that you will want to have 24-hour power coming through. So if you're thinking about it, I'd definitely put a hydrogen on. And I know I'm biased, but I just think the Remoran has, how else could you do 31,000 miles, which is more than a lap of the globe, and not have any problems at all? Not one, apart from one bit of rope around the prop. It's crazy, really. It's extraordinary, isn't it, to find a bit of tech that works like that. It's good.